Welcome to rSlash Am I the Butthole, where OP straight up gets assaulted by his high school teacher. Am I the butthole for shouting at a teacher after she took my cochlear implants in class? I'm a 17-year-old guy, and I was born deaf to a hearing family. My family and I use sign language at home, but I need to speak while at school, as the high school I go to isn't the most accessible or disability-friendly. When I was 9, my parents paid for me to get a surgery to receive cochlear implants, which I only really use when at school or out with my hearing friends who don't sign. Yesterday, I was wearing a beanie in class. Now, usually this wouldn't be a problem when it's my normal teacher, but yesterday we had a sub. The beanie I was wearing was covering the transmitter of my implants, while the part that hooks into my ear was noticeable. I know that there are quite a lot of kids that tend to get into trouble because they'd wear AirPods or whatever devices people use nowadays for music that aren't headphones, mainly because those aren't allowed in classes. Usually, my teachers are aware of my implants and know that it is in fact not a music device, so I never have any trouble, but this was a substitute. She wasn't aware of my implants at first. Keep in mind, it's just at first. While doing some assignments, this substitute, Mrs. Karen, came up to my desk. I don't know what exactly she thought that my implants were, but she didn't like them. Originally, she questioned me and told me to remove them immediately, or she'd have to write me up. I explained to her, made her very aware that what I was wearing were for me to hear her, and even took off my beanie to show her. She pretty much called BS and attempted to take my implants off. This was an absolute no-no. I, on instinct, slapped her hands away and stood up before starting to lecture her, telling her that she has no right to try to take my implants. After this little stir, I sat back down, thinking the situation was most likely over. I was wrong. A little bit afterwards, she came up from behind me and literally snatched my implants from off my head. After this, I got up yet again and started full-on yelling at this lady, telling her that she's not allowed to take assistive devices and threatened to report her. I know that in this situation, me getting physical wasn't the right response, but I was scared as hell that she'd break them. So I grabbed her hands to try to get my implants back, which I couldn't. Of course, after that, she called the principal in, and me having no clue what the hell was being said, I just straight up told the principal that she took my implants and she isn't giving them back. In the end, I got my implants back, but obviously, due to me putting my hands on a staff member, I got suspended, and my principal said that I was in the wrong for the situation. My dad is threatening to report the substitute teacher to the administration. Not only is the teacher very clearly morally wrong here, but also I'm pretty sure legally wrong. I feel like lawyers would be salivating, wringing their hands, seeing dollar signs flash before their eyes if you brought this to them. With this many witnesses, with you clearly explaining the situation, you probably also have these implants registered with the school. This should be a clear win, an easy win for any competent lawyer. So it's assaulting a minor, theft, and probably a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. But, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. Am I the butthole for telling my wife I want a divorce after she gave me a concussion? After work, I was playing with my son and went to the kitchen to throw out a diaper. When I walked into the room, my wife started shouting at me, claiming I hadn't been doing anything since I got home. Mind you, I just spent 2 hours cleaning the kitchen, washing dishes, picking up the living room, and putting my daughter to bed, before going to the living room to play with my son while I continued to pick up. I was frustrated by her comment and asked her what she meant and outlined everything I'd been doing. I left the room and started to walk up the stairs to my living room when I was struck in the side of the head with a sealed cardboard box weighing about 2 pounds. This was thrown from about 15 feet away and thrown at full force, so I was dazed for a moment. After confronting her about why she did this, she continued to yell at me and didn't show any concern. Upset and in quite a bit of pain, I went to sit with my son and process what had just happened. After about 45 minutes, I was experiencing a growing headache and having some problems with the muscles in the right side of my face and jaw. I gave my son to my wife and told her that I had to go to the emergency room because something wasn't right. I ended up spending the night in a hotel, and the next day began contacting resources and scheduling follow-up medical and mental health appointments. The headache lasted 8 days, and I experienced a wide range of symptoms related to the head injury. I missed over a full week of work, and it's been a pretty difficult experience navigating all of my emotions while recovering, and experiencing some bizarre cognitive issues. Needless to say, I've been keeping my distance from my wife while I've been recovering. Over the last few years, I've also been dealing with regular emotional abuse in the form of insults, constant belittling, and threats of divorce. This is probably the 6th incident of violent behavior from her in the last 7 years, and the only time she's used an object. And I have serious concern that she could have just as easily thrown something that could have broken my skull. I'm now seriously concerned about what will happen next time, and I'm not willing to wait and find out only to realize that I should have left long ago. She has no diagnosed mental health disorders, but how out of control she is when she's angry is now very alarming, and it seems to be escalating. Additionally, she refuses to apologize for any of her words or actions since I met her, even after a diagnosed concussion. All she'll say regarding this event are things like, "You know I didn't mean it. I can't aim that well." Over the last week, I was essentially living in a blacked out bedroom and listening to audiobooks between my frequent naps. Up to yesterday, I've avoided engaging her in conversation or anything that seems like I'm being baited into an argument. I don't have the mental or emotional capacity to handle an emotionally charged conversation, and I wanted to focus on my recovery. Last night, I told her I've been walking on eggshells around her for the last year, that I'm not comfortable being around her, and I don't see there being any way to mend this relationship after this. I just don't see myself being able to emotionally open up to someone who's injured me, ever. Her response has been to schedule marriage counseling, and she keeps making strange comments about how I have to be willing to make it work for counseling to be effective. She doesn't seem to have the ability to understand that this won't ever be water under the bridge, and that she's destroyed what was left of our relationship, which isn't much, as there's been no physical intimacy in 2 years due to some medical complications from her pregnancy and the birth of our son. She refuses any physical contact, and lately, I've been struggling with the idea of continuing to live this strange celibate lifestyle for the sake of maintaining a stable home for my children. I've been open about this with my close friends and mentors, and know that I need to leave because domestic violence rarely stops, and I want better for myself and my children. I decided to pursue divorcing her, and I think a large part of telling so many people is to force my own hand due to the embarrassment and shame that staying with her would cause. I told my therapist this, and that I wanted his help navigating towards this goal, but I'm having a very hard time. I'm struggling with the idea of tearing my family apart and the effect it'll have on my 4-year-old daughter. Today, my wife was being unusually sweet and wanted to sit with me. When I refused, she made me out to be a butthole and accused me of not wanting to try. I feel like I'm being heavily manipulated, and my desire to be the peacemaker and nurturer is being twisted against me. When I mentioned this, she got highly offended and accused me of wanting to destroy our family. This has been a wild experience and has been difficult to process. OP, obviously, domestic violence is an automatic deal breaker. If your partner is hitting you, giving you concussions, and then yelling at you while you have to drive yourself to the hospital, then you gotta get out of that relationship. But the thing is, even without the domestic violence, this marriage sounds miserable. Your wife sounds awful. No warmth, no accountability, no love or understanding, just nagging and negativity and coldness. So why would you want to be with her, violence or no violence? OP, I'm giving you 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your wife 4.5 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for not paying for my friend's dinner when she called me a P word? I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I moved into my current apartment 2 years ago. We have an elderly neighbor in her late 70s who mostly keeps to herself. She gets her groceries and medicine delivered every week, but the newspaper delivery boy only drops the paper on the ground floor. Before I moved in, she used to pay some neighborhood kids to bring it up to her, but they moved away shortly after I arrived. So I started bringing her the paper every day. I usually ring the bell and leave it at her door, but when the door is already open, we sometimes have a little chat. She often insists that I come in for coffee and always thanks me warmly. I noticed her apartment is filled with pictures of her grandson, probably more than 20. To be honest, I thought that he was the cutest baby I'd ever seen. The photos ranged from his baby days to what looked like his 21st birthday. I assumed he was around that age, but I never asked, and she never mentioned it. About a year after I moved in, I saw an incredibly attractive guy in our building. I was about 70% sure it was the same kid from the pictures, though he looked older than I expected. When he introduced himself, I found out that I was right. We started talking whenever he visited his grandmother, and soon we began dating. We've been together for 8 months now. He met my parents, and everything's been going well. Last week, I wanted him to meet my college friends and my twin sister, who's currently in town. We all went out to dinner. Although it wasn't explicitly discussed, it was kind of assumed that I would cover the bill. Usually, when someone introduces their boyfriend to the group, the couple pays. The dinner went really well. My friend group of 4 people and my sister all seemed genuinely happy for us. I was sharing the story of how I met him and his grandmother. At some point, my boyfriend stepped away to take a call. That's when my friend Sarah suddenly called me a P-word. I was honestly shocked. When I asked her if she was serious, she just said, "I know a P-word when I see one." I was so disturbed by her words that I excused myself. I paid for the bill, except for Sarah, and left with my boyfriend. Later, she messaged me saying that besides being a P-word, I'm also petty and cheap. It really hurt. I absolutely despise abusers, especially child abusers. So being called something like that has taken a serious emotional toll on me. I'm disgusted by her and the whole situation. What's been bugging me even more is that Sarah was abused by a family member as a child. So now I keep questioning myself. Did I do something wrong? My sister and 2 of my friends are standing by me. Another friend said that she doesn't think that I'm a P-word, but she finds it a bit creepy that I saw him as a baby before we met. My boyfriend, who's 30, actually found it funny at first. But after seeing how upset I've been, he's been reassuring me and telling me that it's not weird at all. I don't know what to do. I know that I'm not a P-word, but it's been really upsetting to be seen as one by someone I once trusted. What? What did I just read? You saw a picture of a baby and then later met that guy when he's 30 years old and that's supposed to make you a P-word? Huh? What? OP, you get 0 out of 5 buttholes. This is like one of those stories where it's so bizarre that you can't even apply normal logic to it, so you're left thinking, wait, what's happening? I'm confused. What reality am I in? So I think that's what's going on with OP. Am I the butthole for telling my mom that she can bill me using the tuition money she stole from me? I'm a 33-year-old guy, and when I was preparing to go to university, my mom confessed that there was no tuition money for me. Through the years, my dad would give her cash to deposit, but she only deposited the cash the first time. She spent the rest. To be honest, I wasn't even surprised. I was used to being disappointed by her. She promised that she would pay me back and asked that I never tell my dad. So for 4 years, I thanked them for the tuition money while I took out loans. For reasons to do with her narcissism, I have an arm's length relationship with her, but she would say we're pretty close, as she assumes my smiling and nodding while she drones on about the same stories is a relationship. We have a family cottage that she puts above everything else. She lives there about 90 days of the year. I've been going there with my girlfriend for about 4 days for a couple of summers, which she begrudges as it takes away from her time. My dad supports me going, which is how I pull it off. My mom recently told me that it was time for me to start paying for some of the maintenance on the cottage since I use it. She actually suggested $1,000, which is wildly disproportionate. I told her she could take it out of the tuition IOU, and we could negotiate the amount with my dad. She was speechless. She texted me later to say that it was manipulative to bring up the tuition and to threaten to tell dad. It went on and on. I've been thinking about it, and first, I'm hurt and offended that she can't just do a nice thing for me. She has to get something for it. Second, I guess I'm not really over the whole tuition thing. Was I the butthole for bringing up ancient history and not paying her for the use of the cottage? OP clarifies, at the time, it never occurred to me that I should have told my dad about the stolen money. I thought that I was doing the right thing by protecting both of them. That pretty much summarizes my childhood. OP, you're pretty clearly not the butthole here, but if your mom's not going to do you any favors, why are you doing your mom any favors? I think you should tell your dad and let him deal with her. You get 0 out of 5 buttholes, your thieving mother gets 3.5 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for saying no child support, no opinion? I'm 17, and I think I might have to explain how I was born for context. My mom has 2 friends, Amelia and Jessica. Jessica's husband cheated on her with Amelia, getting her pregnant, but Jessica forgave them. Then he cheated on her with my mom. Jessica still forgave him and forgave my mom, which makes me think she's probably the most forgiving person on the planet. Anyways, my mom insisted that Jessica's husband is my father, but he always denied it, up until several months ago when he realized how much we look alike. So he agreed to a DNA test. Turns out he is my father. So, 2 affair children by 2 different women for him. He's been visiting about once a month, but things are still awkward between us. I was reading a romance novel when he told me that I'm too young for those books, and he said that I must stop reading them. I told him I won't, but he said I have to listen to him since he's my father. So I said, no child support, no opinion. He seemed pretty stung by it. Was it too much? Yo, this line from Deleted. He may be your father, but he isn't your dad. True! Factual! Actually correct! He's not a father figure, he's just some dude who can't keep his dick in his pants. OP, 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving this cheating deadbeat 3 out of 5 buttholes. That was rSlash Am I the Butthole, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.